Hello, I'm Solarzar, and welcome to Good Vibrations Radio, Tools for Transformation, right here on Radio Monterey. Now, quantum physics tells us that we're all energy vibrating at different frequencies, and in Good Vibrations Radio, we bring you information that allows you to change the vibrational frequency of your life. We're your source for everyday alchemy, so you can take the lead in your life and turn it into gold. Good Vibrations Radio is made possible through the sponsorship of Magic for Life, which is the owner-operator of Radio Monterey, where we bring you information unfiltered, uncensored by the corporate media. Visit RadioMonterey.com, take a look at the shows and the hosts and the information being brought to you, and listen to it so that you can get the information to make better choices in your life. Magic for Life is also the promoter-producer of the Rhoda Psychic Fair, which is coming back to the Monterey Fairgrounds October 29th and 30th. Now, don't wait. Put it on your calendar now, because we're at that annual event around Halloween, Samhain, All Saints' Day, All Souls' Day. We're that time when the veils between the earth are thinnest, and that only means one thing. It's time to have fun. So put it on your calendar. Visit rhodaspsychicfair.com. Get on our email list, by the way, because we're doing a series of smaller events throughout the course of the year, just like the virtual psychic fair we did February 20th and 21st. So find out what those events are so you can stay current with what's coming up and get the word out. We want to see you October 29th and 30th. Now, as you all know, excuse me. Excuse me. Well, as you all know, I love me some James Allen. Now, in 1903, James Allen wrote his essay, As a Man Thinketh, taking the title of the book from chapter 23, verse 7 of Proverbs that says, As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And James Allen wanted us to know that our present is a direct outcome of our past thoughts and actions. But our past thoughts and actions are not a predictor of our future. Our present thoughts and actions are the predictor of our future. So we have the opportunity every day, every moment, to change our life. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're not doing, no matter what you believe can't be done, every day, in every moment, we have the opportunity to shift and change the course of our life. The challenge is, as adults, we forget that it took us many seconds, many minutes, many hours, and many days to bring us to this point. We can't change it overnight, immediately, but we can take the steps to create the shift. The question is, do you want to look back a year from now and wish you had started sooner? In Day by James Allen's words have been taken and put into a context of a little bit for each and every day of the month. Now, yesterday we had Wellness Wednesday with Sherry Dr. Felton, so we didn't share a live reading of James Allen, so I want to share what he said for the 24th, and that was, problems bring lessons. As a progressive and evolving being, man is where he is that he may learn, that he may grow. And as he learns the spiritual lesson which any circumstance contains for him, it passes away and gives place to other circumstances. So think about that in the context of anything that's occurred in your life, especially those things that have had emotional charges, whether it was fear, whether it was anger, whether it was elation. As the circumstances have shifted and we've grown to where we assimilated or absorbed, then we may have found that anger is no longer there, that fear is no longer there. It's a question of, once we've absorbed the lesson, the learning, or the experience, we no longer have the charge around it that we did that first time we're confronted with it. I often like to say that we get lessons repeated to us. They keep coming to us till we no longer notice them. But that doesn't mean the lessons have actually stopped. It's actually we've just integrated the learning and we no longer think about how we need to manage, handle, or respond to that lesson. But that was what he said for the 24th. For the 25th, he says, believe it's possible. Belief is the basis of all action, and this being so, the belief that dominates the hearts or mind is shown in the life. Look around you. Your life is a reflection of the beliefs that you've brought into it. So if you keep saying you really believe something that hasn't manifested or shown itself in your life, the truth is you've got something that's preventing you from really believing that. Intellectually, you may believe it, but emotionally, you don't believe it. At your soul level, you're not believing it. So take a look at what you want to shift in your life, and remember, anything done with a true belief can be accomplished and shift in your life. I always share with you about U.S. Anderson and his book from 1910 of the 3 magic words. And after he goes through every aspect of our life, he ends the book with 3 little words that says, I am God. And for me, that's the foundation of the belief and the foundation of understanding that each and every one of us come into this incarnation as a divine being of light. And the journey that we go through in this physical world is finding the best way to express our light in the world. For each and every one of us, it's different. It's not the same. And for each and every one of us, it's not a case of it has to be profound. It has to be internationally recognized. But it does have to be in the present moment where each of us exist in our lives. That being said, I want to share what the daily word said for yesterday and today as well. Yesterday it said, I express the qualities of my sacred identity. Now I take that very much to go along with what I just shared. That is, I express the qualities of my divinity in my actions, in my communications, in my connections, in my being. When I sit down to eat, am I eating with consciousness, reverence for anything that has been done to bring that food to my table, from anyone who's involved in the process? Am I doing that with a sense of reverence so that the present moment of even having that food and taking it into my system becomes a moment of reverence and divinity? And for today it says, I am filled with spiritual energy and enthusiasm. And boy, carry that forward, because we just came off a powerful full moon on Monday, a powerful full moon whose energy is going to carry us forward for a little while. Now, it was a full moon in Virgo, which is not the best place for a moon, but the good part about that is that Virgo energy helped to tamp down some of that over-emotionality we're used to experiencing around full moons. At the same time, take a look at your week. And I said this Monday, and I said this Tuesday, and I'm going to say it again today. Watch for those tense moments. People may find themselves being more curt. You might find yourself being a little more ticked off or annoyed at things than usual. That's kind of that energy, that detail, specific, routine management energy of the Virgo coming in, coupled with the emotionality of that full moon. So Virgo can be a very forgiving sign, but she has a long memory. So take a look at what you've said or done this week, and take a look at what you haven't said or done, because that's the better part. What I shared in the earlier part of the week, and I share again, before saying anything, ask yourself the question inside, am I being kind? Because if I need to tell someone about their shortcomings, 1, it's not my job, and 2, I'm not being kind. And if someone's telling you about your shortcomings, just accept that they're in a place where they're not able to be kind, and be kind, think twice, say nothing. Just disengage from that situation. Don't let that energy turn tenseness into type of emotional connections that are now going to carry forward for a long period of time because of that long memory of Virgo. And then on Tuesday, we went into this opposition of Jupiter and Virgo opposing Chiron and Pisces. And this is critical, which is why I want to bring it up again, because Jupiter is about beneficence and expansion. And Virgo is about, Virgo is about that routine of daily living. So we want to watch that we're not spending so much time in the detail of daily living that we're not living, because that's what that Jupiter in Virgo can do to us. We can spend so much time on the letter of the law of something that we're not looking at the intent of it. We're not looking at the purpose, and we're not actually being in the present because we're being judgmentally into what the letter of the law is, what that past written word was. Jupiter is also about an expansion, a philosophy of expansion and freedom, and Virgo can push us to focus again on those routines and rituals as if they define the life instead of there's something we do as a supporting element to the fullness of our life. Chiron, of course, in Pisces, Chiron is the wounded healer. It brings forward those childhood woundings that whether we want to admit it or not, we all carry. Most of us haven't completely conquered that wounding. It keeps coming up in some way or another, but we keep healing it as we go on, and that's okay. That's just part of living. But the other part is it could also turn us into one of those raging martyrs, angry at God. We're just going to roar and say, woe is me, put on my martyr cloak, go out to Main Street, let everybody see I'm victim again. Watch with that, because this is tough with the Virgo energy. But when these woundings, these hurts are coming up, when those things are starting to sprout, this is the time for us to explore, identify, release, and forgive. It's really a big time. When Chiron is putting so much pressure on us that it's bringing those woundings up, Chiron wants us to heal. It doesn't want us to be wounded. So look at all of this as a challenging week going forward, but a challenging energy for the sake of healing. It's all about healing so that we can be more present in the present. And speaking of the present, that brings us right to our guest today. Veronica Torres has had an interesting career. As I said on the notifications I sent out, she's really the original Renaissance woman. She's a talk radio host, a rock and roll memorabilia store owner, network director of a holistic practitioner group, and producer of well-being expos, and a jewelry designer. But she's even more than that. She's also a channel of Elohim. And today we're talking about her book, Discovering You, Elohim, channeled by Veronica Torres. Veronica, I want to welcome you to Good Vibrations Radio.
Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
It is truly a pleasure. And I love you. Actually, just reading your bio almost tires me out. I have to admit, I may need a nap. You're obviously someone of great energy, great enthusiasm, at least from the little bit that I've seen or heard. And also you have a variety of eclectic interests. So I have to get right down to it. At what point in your journey, in your life, did you suddenly find yourself being a channel?
It's really quite a good story, actually. Sometimes these stories are good and sometimes they're not so interesting. Mine, I think, is pretty interesting because I was in a marriage that wasn't working. So I went to a psychic to get help with my marriage, which that tells you a lot about myself right away. I went to a psychic for help with my marriage, not some more traditional person that would maybe be in help. And
I'm sorry, was there something wrong with that? I might have missed.
So I show up at the psychic, and the psychic says, you are going to become a channel and you're going to be known around the world. And I said, I don't want that. I just want help with my marriage. And the guy just went, yep, well, there's the truth. So I shelved it. I had plenty on my plate. I was already, in a difficult marriage, running my own business. I had no interest. So I shelved it. And a couple years went by, and I had moved to a new town and didn't know anybody. So I was going to yoga class, and the yoga people said, we're going to do a chant this weekend. I think it was a Friday. We're going to do a chant. Do you want to come to the chant? And I'd never gone to a chant before, but I wanted friends. And so apparently in the new town, that's what you did. You go to chants. So I show up at the chant, and there's about 5 ladies there, and we're doing this chant, and it's, yong, 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 that sort of very monotonous kind of toning. And it went on for a while, and I got super altered. And at the end of it, we sat down in a circle, and all of a sudden this voice just came out of my mouth. It gave a message to the woman who I didn't know sitting across from me, and at the end of the message, I burst into tears. And it wasn't because I was afraid or nervous. I knew exactly what had happened, and it didn't feel scary. I just didn't like that everybody was looking at me. I felt super conspicuous. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. I don't want everybody looking at me all the time. So I shelved it again. Then, a couple years later after that, a friend of mine called me, and she worked at a big company, and she says, some guy just walked by my desk and said my biorhythms are off. Do you know anything about biorhythms? And I was like, well, I don't know anything about biorhythms, but I know about chakras, so maybe something's going on with your chakras. If you come over, I'll look at your chakras. So she came over, and we got to talking, and we talked some more, and we talked some more, and we talked some more. And after talking about all kinds of things, tarot and various other spiritual things, I said, there's this channeling thing that I was predicted that I know how to do, and yeah, we could see what that's all about. And she said, cool, let's do that. So I literally sat down, closed my eyes, said, I don't know how to do this, and Elohim's voice came out and gave her a message about something I knew nothing about, which was really cool. So from then on, we would just write down questions during the week, and on the weekend, we'd get together. I'd sit down. I'd say, I don't know how to do this, and I'd close my eyes, and Elohim's voice would come out. And that was back in 2002. So after about 3 months of the weekend thing, Elohim said, this isn't just for the two of you, get a group together. So we got a group together, and I've been channeling for the public since then. Written over 20 books. We have 500 YouTube videos, travel, all that stuff. Yeah.
And did I miss when I was doing the introduction that you're an overachiever? I might have missed it.
Elohim calls us overachieving light workers. There's a whole set of symptoms that goes around with being an overachieving light worker. And apparently, I'm like the case study of the overachieving light worker. Yeah, you dialed that one in right away.
Okay. So, I also wanted to get to, does Elohim represent a variety of entities, or is it truly an individual entity? It's kind of like when we talk about Abraham with Esther Hicks. Abraham is not really a true entity in itself. It's an entity that shares information through it. Yeah.
So one quick thing about Elohim, and then I'll answer that question because they go together. And the quick thing is lots of different entities use the word Elohim, and it's one of the Jewish names for God. And so it's a common word that sometimes people can have a lot of assumptions or preconceived notions about. And so the way Elohim explains it is this. Just like Veronica has lots of friends named John, and they're not all the same person, there can be more channels using the word Elohim that aren't necessarily accessing the same entity. So the work that I do with Elohim is coherent within itself, and if you compare it to other Elohim teachings, maybe it's not. But within our own work, it all goes together. And Elohim is their energy is my soul energy. I'm a little piece of Elohim. And together we're a little piece of the whole soul that represents both of us, right? So that's how it works.
But when you use the word there in that response, that was really the answer for the question that I was looking for, is that really Elohim is not an entity. It's really, as you said, it's a force, it's a voice, it's a lot inside that. Now, I want to say a couple of things about discovering you. Okay. Before we go on, we want the listeners to know that you will be bringing through Elohim, and we'll have a discussion there as well. But I want to talk a little bit about discovering you and my bias. After all, my show, my bias, I've got to bring it out. I have never, until now, read a channeled book that I enjoyed. I enjoyed discovering you. And I'm going to tell you why I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Is one, I felt it was very clear, direct language. Sometimes there's always this attempt when it comes through that to seek for profound language or, kind of a depth or a richness or something like that, and I've just never enjoyed it. So I found it very direct, very easy to digest, and very easy also to apply to myself because, I'm going through... you don't know this, but I'm just what's my life anyway. My life is a series of roller coasters, and sometimes those downhill slopes are pretty tragic. But so when I saw, are you asking why am I here? Are you drained from doing too much? Do you feel trapped? And I said, wow, what a wonderful thing to read. Let me go through this and see what I got. And I found that there was just an awful lot that's easily adaptable to anyone who reads it, even though it starts out by the conversation between Elohim and Kay. And so I really enjoyed this. I just wanted to get that out right up front.
I appreciate that. You know, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of private sessions. I still do private sessions. People can book on my website. And in all of the sessions I've done, I've never shared them with anybody else. But when Kay and I had this session, at the end of it, it happened to be an in-person session, which I don't do all that often. We just looked at each other, and I said, I need to make this a book. And she said, go ahead. She gave me permission to make her private session into a book because we could feel that it was applicable to so many people. And I love to hear a guy say, I get it, because I hear women say I get it a lot. And it's really nice to hear a guy say I get it. So I'm really touched. And Elohim is extremely down to earth. That's the most common feedback I get about Elohim, which always cracks me up because they don't even have a body. But people go, God, they're so down to earth. And
well, the language is really direct, and I think that's the down to earth piece. I don't have to search for the meaning. I'm not seeking through the Kabbalah to put together the first of each paragraph and numerologically figure out what they really meant. It's right there. It's telling me.
Yeah. Yeah, and all my books have a glossary in them. So if they use a word that you're not sure how they're using it, flip to the back. We define the words because Elohim's very careful about the words they pick because they want to make sure that the word they're using actually means what they mean it to mean. So that's why my books all have glossaries in them so that you can see what do they mean by that word.
And since you mentioned it, I just want to go to it real quick, that people who are interested can go to Elohim.com. It's also on the guest page of Good Vibrations Radio, and so that's ELOHEIM.com. Now, you were going to go ahead and bring through Elohim, and I want to let the people know who are online, if any people who have dialed in would like to talk to Elohim, you can actually hit *2 to raise your hand, and we'll give you an opportunity to ask a question. So, Veronica, whenever you and Elohim are ready, just let me know.
Okay, give me just a moment. They're always close by during the interviews because they love interviews. So hang on just a second. I will get them for us. Hello. Hello. Oh, we're interviewing today. Hello.
Well, hello to you, too. Hello as well.
Now, where is your
thank you very
body?
much for joining us, and thank you very much for the guidance and wisdom that you've been sharing, as well as this latest book, Discovering You, that Veronica shared with us from the sessions with Kay.
Yeah, that
Are there
was
any
great.
things that you're seeing as general issues that more people are dealing with right now that you could give the listeners who aren't asking questions, give them a little guidance or tips or insight?
Sure. It's always fun for us when we talk to someone in your position to sort of feel into the energy of your audience and bring forth something that that's sort of a collective energy that they're asking for. And in this community that you've drawn to you, there's a lot of people who really have worked on themselves and have paid attention to how they react to the situations they find themselves and have been on the path for a while and maybe get a little downtrodden with the idea that they have hoped that there would be bigger changes by this time. And it's very easy to overlook the magnificent shifts that are happening in your society, and because you have a vision of what you thought it was going to be like by now. And that's one of the things that we would definitely caution people against, overlooking the huge changes that have happened because they don't look exactly like you have the preconceived notion they should. So it's a bit like in your introduction where you just talked about finding that connection to the now. What we like to say is you look around and you're either looking around with fear driven by the survival instinct or fascination driven by conscious choice. So in each moment, you have this opportunity to say, where is the fascination in this moment, rather than always noticing the thing that's not yet done, or noticing the aspect of society that hasn't evolved as fast as you wish it would. There's so much richness right in the now. And if people feel trapped, like things aren't changing fast enough, one of the things we love to do, and it's really good this time of year because it's springish, is we have a tool called Look Out the Window. And the notion here is that you find a vista. Now, it doesn't have to be a window, but it's nice if, that's an easy visual for people. And every day around about the same time, look out that window and require that you see something you haven't seen before. And maybe at first glance it all looks the same as it does yesterday, and that requires a bit deeper looking. The light will be different. The clouds will be different. There'll be more plants. There'll be a flower. There'll be a bug. There'll be a bee. Something will have changed. And that's just training yourself so that when you leave the house or you look around your own environment, you're always looking for the thing that's evolving. You're reflected in your physical world, so you're evolving, your physical world is evolving. Things are changing. Don't lose sight of the fact that things are changing, even if the news and Facebook seem to tell the same story every day. You, as the light worker, are the one who notices the small changes that accumulate. That's part of your role. As a conscious individual seeking transformation for your society, is you notice the small changes and kind of catalog and keep track of them, because that brings them up in the louder awareness of general society, is when they're noticed.
One of the things we always talk about, and I think it goes with what you're saying, and I wanted to ask, so there is a question at the end of this. One of the things we always talk about is if we hold our focus into changing kind of the immediacy cone, the cone of us, instead of the cone of the larger world, we also don't get as caught up in the larger world. So as you said, if I look at the little changes around me on a daily basis, I can see the progress. If I'm so busy looking at what's going on, whether it's in politics or in the world, I sometimes don't see those little things. So I have to look for the little things you're talking about right in my cone, right in my little world. Is that correct?
Yeah, we always focus our teaching on what is in your lap, because only when we know the power of emanation, right? So you're being in clarity, you're being centered, you're being balanced. Emanating that to the world is the greatest gift you can offer. You don't run around what we call shaking people's shoulders, where you reach over what's in your lap to grab a hold of someone else and say, hey, man, have you seen this news article? Right? We're not doing that. What we're doing is finding the relationship to anything that you experience within yourself, and then emanating out of you a transformed experience of that. We call it the red hat. So let's say you're walking down the street, or somebody walking the other way on the other side of the street, and they're wearing a really cool red hat, and you're like, dude, that red hat is awesome. I don't have a red hat. I've never had a red hat. Maybe I need a red hat. I'm going to go get myself a red hat. All the while, the person wearing the red hat has no idea they even affected you. That's a physicalization of what we're talking about emanation. The guy with the red hat who knows about the stuff going on in the political and social and environmental realms, but who has had a transformed relationship of it, a relationship of consciousness rather than fear, walking down the street is literally broadcasting a signal, not unlike your radio's doing right now, broadcasting a signal that other people pick up on, and it gives them an option to choose energetically, an energetic option to the way that they've always done it. Right now, the option that's broadcast very loudly is fear, 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 fear. When someone walks down the street saying, yeah, I know fear is an option, but here's another way to look at it, not shaking shoulders, just walking, people can say, wait a minute, I can do it another way? You'd be surprised. Most people don't know there's a way other than fear to navigate the human life. So emanation is the major, major, major gift. And especially light workers who've been in the path for a while, that's a gift you're giving, and you don't know you're giving it as often as you are. That emanation. So when you notice small changes, you're actually plugging that into your emanation and broadcasting it out. You don't have to win the lotto to have a life, right? That whole, like, it's got to instantaneously, must be a grand slam in order to be a success. None of that's actually true, right? We're all base hits. We're not after grand slams.
That's right. Games are won with base hits. That's right.
Games are won with base hits, as is transformation. Evolution is a slow process because, you know, you need to stay alive while it happens, and you don't need to be overwhelmed. A lot of times evolution is overwhelming when people do too much at once, so that giving time for integration, you know, things happen. We call it disruption. Anything can happen. You were talking about the roller coaster earlier. You get a disruption. Then you integrate that disruption, and then you live a transformed life that you emanate. That pattern repeats. It's the energy of 2016, but it also repeats in general. You emanate, you integrate to emanate.
And I'd like to do a reminder for those people who called in. If anybody wants to ask a question, you hit *2 on your phone. It will raise your hand. I'll be able to see that, and you'll be able to ask a question. So I have another question for you, which is, do you select the channel, or is it the channel that selects you, even if it's done unconsciously?
Well, in the case, we're only working with Veronica at this time, and we are of the same soul. So it was a prearranged agreement in the beginning that she would be the physicalization of our soul energy at this time.
Okay. Well, that's... And so our largest message, as you've pointed out based on my question, was really for us, again, to pay attention to our immediate, what's in our lap, as you put it, to use your words. I really like that. I think that that's a great visual for all of us. And what would you like to see more of us doing at this time? Is there, I don't know, a way you would like us to, not as a direction, I'm asking this question wrong, but is there something you would like to see us focusing more attention on at this point in time to help the rest of us so that we could be more people with red hats walking down the street?
Well, that's the key right there, is finding the way that it helps you be the red hat without you getting all egoic about it and saying, I'm a red hat, right? So we're not looking for a bunch of egos running around saying, I am emanating to the world, change is possible. No, we're looking for people who walk around and they've worked so much on becoming what we call non-triggered, right? We're looking for the ways that you interact with your triggers, which is when you get upset, off balance. The way you evolving your relationship to triggers is what we're all about, you know. And we have lots of books and we come up with these tools. You know, the look out the window was the example we gave, but we have dozens and dozens and dozens of them. People ask us a question, we come up with a tool to help them change their relationship to the triggered state. When you do not get triggered in an environment that you previously would have been triggered, that's when we feel celebration is in order. So if something happens, you know, somebody sneaks in front of you and takes the parking space you were waiting for, and 3 years ago you'd want to jump out and beat them to death, and now you just go, okay, and you carry on, not out of denial of your feelings, but literally because you are not in an assumption that that parking space was the only parking space for you today, but instead that offers you something. Right? Because we like to teach that your physical world, everything you can see and touch right now, is all your soul being made physical so that you have the opportunity to interact with it from the human form. So you as a human being are here as part of your soul. Also, your couch and your microphone and your chair and your desk and whatever else are all parts of your soul that are also here in a physical form, so you can get to know your soul in a way that's very unique to Earth. And so as you go around in this world with that ability to see the world that way, and it's not something that you just fall into. There's some steps leading up to being able to do that on a regular basis. Every single thing you encounter it's a sacred act because you're encountering your infinite self offering itself in a limited form for your interaction. So if somebody sneaks in front of you and gets the parking space and you could choose to feel like a victim about it, but instead you say, I know I create my reality through how I choose to react in this moment, and you come at it from that different side, that non-triggered side, you're the red hat all day long, but more importantly, you're having a changed experience of being human, which is what we're really about. We're about empowered evolution. Empowered evolution.
What I like that you also shared was the idea of to at least honor the emotions that may have come up before about that, or even now about that. We don't have to react to that emotional trigger, but honor it. And I think sometimes people are trying to suppress that, and the suppression creates a larger reaction.
This is true.
Or a delayed reaction.
The body changes slowest, right? The body changes slowest. Because if the body changed fast, you would get overwhelmed. Your system's not set up. It's just the way the body's built. It's not set up to change really fast. So the body changes more slowly. That gives you time to adapt. And it also helps because then the body doesn't listen to you immediately. So when you say, I hate this place, I want off the planet, get me out of here, you don't die every time you say that. So it's good that the body moves slowly. But because the body moves slowly, you have to honor that when something rises in you, even if you're not going to act upon it. You know, you get a bill in the mail that's unexpected. And you have that rise of adrenaline in your body. And even though you might say, well, I can handle this, you might still feel sad, or you might feel emotional, or you might just have a heart beating fast. Let the body have the time it needs to process those reactions. All the while you can be saying, I feel upset, but I'm not acting on my upset because that's not the place from which I want to make the further decisions about this. But I'm honoring the fact that the body needs a minute to catch up with where I am in my decisions. We have a whole teachings called The Levels of Creating that goes into this very deeply about this, the way that the body, what we call the body, the personality, and the awareness interact when you come into situations like this. So, yeah, it's something we cover in depth. But they've got to give the body a minute. I
was going to say, once again, people can go to Eloheim.com, ELOHEIM.com, to find out more about some of these other teachings and the information that's shared by Veronica shared by Eloheim through Veronica. But so when we're living right now in our present moment, when we're looking at the beautiful changes that are going on around us, the little changes, the incremental changes, when we're learning to honor our emotions and our body, another thing that's touched on a little bit in the book Discover You is also this idea of who shows up when we go through a situation. And we've heard for years, you know, we have our parent, our child, our adult, and everything else all of inside of us. But isn't that a big part of what we're doing emotionally? And so my question to you is, who is best for us to want to show up in situations when we're going through these emotional reactions? Are we reacting through a childhood wound? Are we reacting through a parent judgment? Or is the adult really the one we want to work toward becoming?
We always say you want the current version of you, because the current version of you is the one that's listened to the radio shows, that's read the books, that's taken the classes. You don't want the 20-year-old version of you reacting to a situation. Why would you spend the last 30 years learning a bunch of stuff if you let the 20-year-old version of you handle the current moment? Right? So you want the... We have a tool, Who Answers the Door, which we believe is the one you're referring to. It's like, you know, the ex-boyfriend's banging on the front door, and you know you don't want to talk to him. But who is going to answer that door? Is it going to be the 5-year-old looking for her daddy's love? Is it going to be the teenager who's just got her first boyfriend? Is it going to be the 30-something that's, you know, feeling the biological clock ticking that says, I might not find another guy, maybe I have to put up with this guy? Or is it the current version of you that says, look, I decided you're not for me anymore. We're not a fit. Who's going to be the one who answers the door? And every situation you have this temptation to use previous versions of you to answer the door out of habit, habitually using. And most of the time it's because you feel like a victim of the circumstance. Oh, why is he banging on the door? And then you react from a victim-y time of your life rather than current version of you that says, I don't care why he's banging on the door. It doesn't mean I have to interact with him. It doesn't even mean I have to answer.
Is it an innate part of the human being to want to, let's say, be a victim at different times, or have the pity party, or have people pat them on the head and said, oh, you poor little thing? It seems as if everybody goes through periods where that's what they seek. Is it natural?
Yeah, sorry, we interrupted you. In our teachings, the levels that we talked about, level 2 is victimhood, and it's extraordinarily common, even for very advanced light workers, to have that initial reaction to using the example, the bill comes in the mail. It's tax time, so it's a good time. It's a good time to use the bill come in the mail example. The bill comes in the mail. The first moment of opening it up and seeing it being unexpected, you feel like a victim of the IRS. You feel like a victim of the government, whether or not it lasts an hour or a second. Because of the survival instinct and lots of reasons where the humans set up this way, it's immediate reaction of victimhood, which is the immediate, is this going to kill me? Are you someone who's going to kill me? Should I protect myself? It's that survival instinct aspect. So there's that immediate reaction of victimhood, and our teachings help you not use the victim part of you to make that decision of how to interact with it. But many people don't, haven't heard our talks, so don't know that they have an option other than victimhood. And so, someone comes along and says, pay thousands of dollars, and you think, oh my God, how am I going to feed my kids? I'm in danger. I'm a victim. I'm looking for an authority figure to blame for the fact that I don't feel comfortable now. That's a normal reaction. And unfortunately,
and so then I guess the other side of that, which is also common in the community, is the rose-colored glasses view of saying, well, look, I'm above all this, and then the person isn't dealing with reality. So do you have something that counters that as well?
It's really interesting when people, I'm above all this, okay, if it doesn't trigger you, that's one thing. But if you're coping using denial, we're not into coping. We're into reality and facts, right? So if you're coping using denial, great. So eventually, someone's going to knock on the door and take all your stuff. And is that a solution to a big bill that you don't know how to pay? We don't think so. So we're not into coping, and we're not into victimhood. We're into let's deal with the facts at hand. Let's address how they're creating reactions, temptations, and habitual reactions in you, and then use tools to change those reactions to something that's constructive. Our work is extremely step-by-step and extremely practical. Like at any point, this is the step you're on. And if the step feels too big, you break it down into smaller steps until it's a step you're on that doesn't feel too big. And if that step that you finally break it down into is take a breath, you can do that. That's a doable step. Now what's the next step? Open the letter from the government, right? Opening the letter when you're triggered may be too hard. Getting calmer first, now it's not so hard. So we have really a caller. Work on.
We have a caller from Sarasota, Florida, who would like to ask a question.
Cool.
Go right ahead. If I won't say your name because that's up to you if you want to share your name.
Yeah, hi. This is Miche.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have a question about how to live in a non-triggered state when you're living with chronic pain, trying to not be triggered without necessarily, just trying to take drugs to not be physically triggered.
Yes. Pain is probably one of the biggest challenges around transforming your triggered response because it holds you in a space of constant reminder of your trigger. If you have a trigger about, using our example, about a bill, you might forget about it when you're watching a TV show or talking to somebody. But when you have pain and it's constant, it's always there. And so this is probably, we would say, one of the most difficult ways to make a change around the triggered state. And our answer cannot apply to every single person because some people the pain is so much that it just flat out won't work to do it any other way other than maybe to take drugs. Or, we just feel lots of people saying, yes, me. And so right now we've got so many people's energy asking us for an answer, but we're going to speak to it generally right now. And that is the body is offering you a truth when it offers you pain. It's offering you a truth. Most people's instantaneous reaction is to try to find a way out of the pain, but not to explore the truth. So our request would be, or our suggestion would be to say, what is this pain showing me? Now, it's easy to say it's a lesson, it's a teaching, this is Earth School, and feel that external authority figure school marm energy in this, and we don't want to go there. We just want to go to, you are in a body. You have to have a body to be on Earth, so there you go, you've got one. Your body is giving you a message. Oftentimes, messages of pain are because you haven't been listening to your body very much over the years. So as you start to listen to your body and it says, look, that's too hard to walk up those stairs, you might say, but I have to walk up the stairs, and there's the conflict. If the body says no and you demand that it does it, then that right there is the conflict. And the coping is to just grin and bear it or take a bunch of drugs so you can do it, rather than to say, perhaps, I have to face the reality that I need to change my living situation or find a way where I don't have to walk upstairs. And that's a big shift for a lot of people. However, typically when the body pushes all that pain message, it's because those big shifts have been set aside for years and years and years. And the body's message gets louder and louder and louder as a way to get attention on something that's going on. Oftentimes the body's asking for your attention about something that's going on, and it only has so many messages it can give you. Anxiety, stress, pain, worry, frustration. The body has a very limited amount of ways to say, pay attention to me. It's a little bit like a toddler. It yells, it throws things, it screams. There isn't a huge vocabulary when you're 2. So in a way, the body's like that too. Its vocabulary isn't that big. So pain, tension, discomfort often is its vocabulary, as is joy and happiness on the other side. So, we're talking about the vocabulary of getting your attention, not the vocabulary of exploring. So that's our best advice is when you have a lot of pain is, one, if you need to see a doctor, see a doctor. We're not a doctor. We don't diagnose. That's not our job. But if you've looked into it and you feel like, okay, I'm dealing with this pain, see where when you think about the pain or address the pain, you find yourself saying, I can't change blank. That has nothing to do with the pain, because oftentimes that has to do with what's going on underneath the pain.
Well, I want to thank you for asking that question. I hope that gave you some information.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the answer.
You're welcome.
Excellent. So what I'd like to ask is thank you for joining us, and ask if we can bring Veronica back as we go into the final minutes of the show.
We'd be happy to. Thank you very much for introducing us to your community. It was wonderful to feel into their energy and to see the real work that they've all done on themselves as they traveled this human journey. And hopefully our words gave them support in doing that even more. And that, if they're looking for some of our insights, we have plenty of them there on the website. So we'll get Veronica for you, and thank you again.
My pleasure.
I love when Eloheim sort of like tries to do the wrap it up thing. They're like, and we have more, and we can talk, and we have books, and buy. They cracked me up.
It was unfortunate that they were so reserved and held back. Yeah, that was wonderful. I enjoyed that.
I'm glad.
One thing I can get back to, so you mentioned several of the courses that you offer on your website as well, and that's, I think, really the nature of we want everybody to get from this is that there's other levels. Even if they can't physically experience you, they can have private sessions, and they have other courses that they can go ahead and enroll in. Did you want to talk a little bit about that to let people know more?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, we have quite a lot of books, so if you were interested in the levels work that Eloheim referenced, when they did the levels work, it changed everything for me. I'd been working with them for about 8 years, and it felt like all those 8 years were practice so that I would be good enough at channeling that for 3 years I could channel the levels work. And then it took 6 months to birth it into physical form. I made a card deck to support exploring the levels work. It blows my mind even to this day, every single time I look at it. So you can find that on my website. If you go to eloheim.com/levels, there's that work. Then there's the tools. We talked a lot about the tools, and we only touched on a few of them. I have an ebook with 53 of Eloheim's tools, It's on a special offer on my website. It's right there on the home page. So that's a good place for people to start getting getting accustomed to working with Elohim's material. And then, of course, I do private sessions. So we have several different types of private sessions. You can work with Elohim consistently over time, or you can just do a one-off. There's lots of different ways to interact with us, and I do 4 live broadcasts a month. I have conference calls. There's just tons of ways to be in touch with us. And it's all on the website. If people are on Facebook, they can join our Facebook group. It's called Connect with Elohim, and just search for that on Facebook. We'd love to have you. We have a great, great Facebook group. So I'm active in the group every day, sharing material and answering questions. So that's another wonderful way to be in touch.
Well, I guess a great way for people to start is because you are offering the download with the 53 tools. That's a great way to start. And then people can decide if that really reaches them more, if they want more from that. Because there are so many different ways for all of us to reach our spirituality. Hopefully this is one for people who are listening, and if it's not, they can at least experience it through the free offerings that you're providing as a way of touching it. I would encourage people to get, if they haven't, I've never had your other books, so I can't talk to them, but about Discovering You, Elohim Channeled by Veronica Torres. And now I'd like to know, obviously it's a form of a career path, but how has the channeling of Elohim really changed your life on your spiritual path?
Yeah, everything is so different. I used to be so afraid all the time. I have this friend who looks like a cross between an FBI agent and a mobster. He's like 6'6". He's huge, and he's a really intimidating guy. And one time we were driving in the car, I was driving, and I live in Sonoma, California, which is wine country, tourist land. It's very, very, it's not a very threatening place to live, let's just call it that. And we're driving down the street in broad daylight with this guy next to me, and I look in my rearview mirror, and there's just a car with, I think, a woman driving behind me. And I felt fear. And I looked over at him in the passenger seat, and I said, when you're driving down the street, to this day, I can't believe I said this to this man. I said, when you're driving down the street, do you feel afraid of the people in the car behind you? And he just turned his head and looked at me. I wish I had a video of it. And it was such a ludicrous idea in his mind. I don't even know if he answered. He just looked at me. And I realized at that time how much fear was driving my life. So, with Elohim, I don't have that anymore. I don't have that fear driving my life all the time. And it's because of the tools. It's because of not coping like they talked about, and it's because there's that support to where I don't habitually use the survival instinct to navigate my world. I use it to help me, hit the brakes fast if I need to, but I don't use it to navigate my conversations anymore. And I certainly don't use it to decide whether or not I'm afraid of the person in the car behind me in broad daylight. So that's probably the number one change, beyond the fact that, I have all this opportunity to be creative and to meet new people and to travel around the world and visit, different places and meet new friends and all that stuff. The main personal thing it did was it stopped that every single thing in this world is scary to me. I used to spend so much time thinking about disaster scenarios and how I would solve them if they happen. Okay, so if that person says this, I'm going to say that, and then that'll probably work out. 5 or 6 of those on everything I could dream up. I mean, that was a huge amount of my life, was just running around like a scared little rabbit all the time. And I don't do any of that anymore, at all. So even if that was the only thing that channeling ever gave to anybody, I think it was worth it.
Well, it sounds also as if doing this, as you were told by that psychic, this is what you're supposed to do. But it obviously is what you're supposed to do because you're free. You're actually having a full expression of your divinity, your purpose in this life with what you're doing by bringing through Elohim. And so perhaps that's part of it as well. But I wanted to mention this Learn to Create Your Reality deck that you have also on your website for people, and just mention that you were talking about the levels, and this, of course, talks on 6 levels about the duality. Level 2 is victimhood. Level 3 is I create my reality and I don't like what I've created, which I think is often again, that double trap. If I wasn't a victim already, I can be a victim now because I made such bad choices.
You get it. Eloheim got so sick of people saying in private sessions, I know I create my reality, but why did I create this? That they just threw down the gauntlet and said, we're going to make an entire product just to make that so that people don't say that to us anymore.
Yeah, and then level 4, which you've touched on too, is I choose my reactions to my experiences. Level 5, this experience is mine. And level 6, what trigger? And so I just want to direct people to explore and find out, because obviously, as you've mentioned, there's many tools here for people, regardless of where you feel you are on your phase of the journey. But I think when it comes to victimhood, that is the constant that runs through almost everyone that I come across, and that means me as well.
Sure.
Because after all, where would I be without my victimhood?
And the levels teaching, the thing about the levels teaching that's amazing is we're not in one level and then we go to another, like graduating from high school. It's every situation. One situation may be level 2, one situation may be level 5. We may start off in level 5 and move to level 6. We may be in level 6 and, oh crap, now we're in level 1, right? So all that it's not static. It's saying, I am in this situation. I'm in this level about this situation. Is this the level I want to make my decision from? Like who answers the door? Do I feel like a victimhood right now of this bill that came in the mail? Do I want to react to this moment from level 2 victimhood, or do I want to work on myself so that I can react to this from a different place? Not cope, actually transform myself so I can react to this from a different place, thus creating my reality from something other than the habitual response of victimhood that was the first thing that popped up. Just because it pops up, a feeling pops up, doesn't mean it's where you're supposed to start from. It just means it's a habit.
Yeah, see, and I think I just want to say this. I think that's the difference between you as well as Eloheim and what you're bringing through is the directness of the message and the way it's applied for all of us to adapt and understand. It's very clear. The message has a lot of clarity. You know what to do. You know what you're not doing. You know what you are doing. And then the only piece that we share here all the time is, and please, please, please be gentle with yourself. Okay, I know, I got it, but I did it anyway. Be gentle, forgive, and move on. But I love that. I love the directness of the message. It really resonates.
In all the years I've worked with Eloheim, they've only given us one rule, and that's you don't get to be mean to yourself. If you wouldn't say it to the 4-year-old child of your best friend, you don't get to say it to yourself, period.
Excellent. I love that. And so, Veronica, I'm going to ask you to just hold on for a second. Thank you for joining us today. Don't go away. I'm going to go into the show wrap-up, and for the rest of the listeners, I want to remind them that this show will actually rebroadcast tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Pacific time right here on New Radio Monterey. You have multiple ways of connecting for those who dialed in. You could use that dial-in if you choose, but actually you can go to the website, listen online. You can pull down the apps, or you can call the number that's on the website of Radio Monterey that would allow you to listen from any phone, anywhere, anytime. So I want to thank everybody for listening. We'll be back Monday also at noon. Kirillani will be back from her trip, and she'll be doing the Go with the Flow. We're going to give a little bit of a wrap-up of the energy of February as we go into the energy of March. And March is a month about self-truth and self-love. It's getting really clear about who you are as you go through the rest of this transformational journey of the year. We want to remind folks that we've been talking to Veronica Torres about her book, Discovering You, Eloheim, channeled by Veronica Torres. You can go to Eloheim.com. It's also on the guest page of GoodVibrationsRadio.com. Go there, visit, pay attention, and we'll have some other things coming up next week, but we're going to talk about those on Monday. Have a great rest of your week, a wonderful weekend. Many blessings. Thanks for listening. Namaste.